Welcome to the YouTube channel of Life and More. Today we have with us Aletta André and Abhimanyu Kumar, and both of them have written a book together. Uh, the book is titled The House of Awadh, A Hidden Tragedy. And as you might have anticipated, the book is about the much publicized Malcha Mahal royals. Delhi people who read newspapers regularly would definitely know what Malcha Mahal royals were. And because this news item almost regularly appeared in newspapers. So welcome Aletta and welcome Abhimanyu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So why did you want to write this book? What was it that prompted you or inspired you to write this book?
Mm. Well, so our interest started with just one article, which was for Abhimanyu's weekly newspaper he was writing for at the time, and that was in 2015. That's 10 years ago. But especially after 2017, which is when Ali Raza, the son of the family, died, and he was the last one, that we found out more and more about the family, which made us realize that there is a book here. It's not just an article. For example, after he passed away, we visited the Malcha Mahal and we found documents that they left behind, and newspapers and letters, and also notes with contact details. And one of the sources we found like that, and it's described extensively in the book, is a person who used to work for the family. And it took some time of pursuing him, but when we started talking with him, he told us that there used to be another child, and that he traveled with him to Lucknow, and that the children used to speak amongst each other about Pakistan, for example. So there were already so many ingredients: Lucknow, Pakistan, partition, Kashmir, which was mentioned in the writings that they did, that they used to live there. So many ingredients, and then of course House of Awadh. So many different aspects of South Asian history were there in this one single family, that we thought there's plenty of material for a book there.
Yeah, absolutely. There were so many different facets to the story, to the family itself, even to the characters, including Vilayat Mahal, Begum Vilayat Mahal, who underwent several transformations as a person, as we write in the
Like,
book.
okay.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
is it that the book took its birth in 2017 or 2018, sometime around that time?
Sometime around then, maybe. I mean, at that time we still were writing an article, but the article became
Hmm.
longer and longer, and
Okay.
and ultimately we started working on a book proposal, but it wasn't.
Hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't until maybe 2000.
19,
Yeah,
20.
when the proposal really saw the light, and
Yes,
we
it
started
was.
working
Okay.
on it properly, like structurally as a book.
It was commissioned in
So,
2019-20.
Yeah.
so that means it took almost 6 years to write this book.
Well, I mean, everything considered, all the aspects that made it
Hmm.
to the book, yeah, it took many years. Like
Yeah.
once we really had the proposal accepted by a publisher and we started working on it structurally, even then it took a good 3 years, I guess,
Yeah.
Hmm.
including the remaining research and the writing. Yeah.
Okay. So, and what kind of research did you do? Did you refer to the history books or spoke to people in person like this? So, the helper that you got to know about, you connected with, were there many there were many interviews, or you refer to the history as well?
Mm.
I would say that, it was a mix of various things. We spoke to a lot of people as well,
Hmm.
especially in Kashmir. We went to archives, we went to Nehru Memorial Library. We found some material
Okay.
from the National Archives. We found some material from
Mm,
Srinagar Archives. So, and
mm,
Aleta found material in the Dawn's archives in Pakistan, in Karachi.
Hmm. Yeah.
mm. Okay.
Yeah.
You
So
traveled all the way to
archive and
Karachi?
interviews and history books. Yeah, I visited Karachi. I was a reporter about South Asia for Dutch media. I did
Okay.
report in Pakistan
Okay.
when there were floods, for which I was also in
Okay.
Karachi. And I came to know there's
Okay.
the main archive of the English newspaper Dawn is there. And
Okay.
they helped me to find their digital, to search their digital archive. And there were many references to Vilayat in the early 1950s, as well as
Hmm.
her husband. Yeah.
Okay. So, was it a very challenging work to gather all the information, or it was a smooth sailing?
No.
Yeah, not a smooth sailing, I think.
Okay.
No, I
Get,
mean, for
getting.
example, for example, finding like both the archive as well as finding people was very challenging.
Hmm.
Abhimanyu, he is the one who visited Kashmir for the research, and
Hmm.
he, like the first visit there, he didn't find anyone or even the location we were searching. Like he was not able to locate it, and it took, talking, and then by talking to our process about many people, there were also people that came from unexpected corners, saying, oh, I actually know this location, or but just by coincidence, while he was in an archive chasing information about the house where they used to live, he happened to find someone
Hmm.
who said, like, hey, I overheard you, and I actually know these people. I used to live very near, and then introducing us to others. So there was a lot of
Hmm.
legwork and some luck involved as well. And also the archives, it was so difficult because a lot of things are lost. A lot of archive material is lost, and then also
Hmm.
some of it was also inaccessible. Like we had some National Archive papers that references other documents, other document numbers. But when trying to access these, also with RTIs, for example, we
Hmm.
faced some closed doors as well.
I would just like to add, if I may, quickly, that
Hmm.
you had asked before, in fact, if we read a lot of history books. So a lot of history books, I mean, when I could not do much in Kashmir on the first trip, I did read a lot of history books to make sense, because
Hmm.
some things were
Hmm.
so much in the past that it's nobody's fault that they have just kind of been erased out of history almost. That's
Hmm.
one thing. And just a
That's
small,
what.
Mm.
yes.
That's what also you mentioned, that they have been erased from the history.
Yeah, and along with several other developments that took place in the early years of
Hmm.
independence for India and Pakistan. And just a small
Hmm.
correction is that I met
Hmm.
somebody at a Patwari's office in Kashmir, not in the archives. You
Okay.
cannot actually speak much, and for somebody to
Okay.
overhear you,
Okay.
you have to be quiet.
Hmm.
Yes,
Okay, okay. So, did you ever feel disheartened or dejected कि ठीक है इसको छोड़ देते, let us leave it, or it all this experience prompted you to get to know more about it?
Mm.
both are true, I
Yeah.
would say. At times
Hmm.
we were a bit dejected.
Yeah, I don't think
Disheartened.
we ever said let's leave it. At some
No.
point, we also had a book contract, and like, okay, we have to finish this some way or the other.
Mhm.
and
Okay.
um,
Yeah, that's true.
we, of course, when we started out the research, we did not know what we would find, and it was also on my
Hmm.
final travels to Pakistan that we had kind of already decided, like, okay, there are so many dead ends. Let us just write about the process of what we have tried and what we could not find, and just by speaking to historians and sources like that to try to make sense of the period they were there. And like at the very last minute, I
Hmm.
finally met a relative who was again giving new insights that have now kind of become the climax of the book in the final chapter that we did not know beforehand. So yeah,
But
he
but if
Okay.
again, if I may add a little bit, is that when she finally met that person, if I may
Hmm.
say that through our work, we had put in quite a few things already, the jigsaw puzzle that it was, and so he gave us new
Hmm.
information. He also confirmed some of us our findings.
yeah.
Okay, okay. But, and what did you find about Begum Vilayat Mahal? She's quite an intriguing figure. She was, at least from what I read in the newspapers here, she was portrayed as a very mysterious kind of woman.
Hmm.
Why don't you?
So, what
Yeah.
did you find in your research? How do you find that woman?
Yeah, I mean, we found that there, and that can be true for anyone, but there's so many layers to a personality, and that there are so many also, events in somebody's life that can define how somebody, ultimately is. And the person she was in Delhi is not the same person who she was in Karachi or in Lucknow before partition. So there's just one of the chapters we also call transformation, is that somebody that she was someone with a past that that people did not know about, and she was a very interesting woman. She was kind of at the forefront of nation building in the early years of Pakistan. She was very much an active part of the women's movement there, and she was a very ambitious and smart woman. um, that made certain choices, and that had certain certain
Implications.
experiences that changed her in course of time. And Kashmir also plays a very important part of that. But it was very interesting, and that was actually, I think, the main purpose of this book was to look at Vilayat Mahal as well as her children as humans with that lived a rich life, and have real personalities, different personalities, rather than just kind of the eccentric caricature of royalty that she became in most of the media reports.
Tell me about the Kashmir connection you just spoke.
Kashmir, she came to Kashmir in the early 60s. And
Okay.
there is some still, there is some doubt because whether she went herself or Pandit Nehru sent her, because there are some files
Okay.
that are with the government that have been destroyed. And
Okay. That's something.
yeah, so
That's
but the
something.
hmm, but the best we can, yes. So the best we could do was to see whatever we could find, and we found papers from the archive where she did
Mm-hmm.
actually ask Pandit Nehru to help her settle in Kashmir, from where she claimed
Mm-hmm.
ancestry, which we found
Mm-hmm.
out was actually true. So she had
Okay.
multiple connections to different places. Like she was a Shia from Lucknow. She was also her father was from Kashmir, who was a
Mm-hmm.
Sunni himself. So maybe because of this complexity of her ancestry, there was some confusion as well. And then there was, but to come to Kashmir, then the period she came in, it was the period in which Ghulam Muhammad Bakshi had become very unpopular with the Kashmiri
Okay.
people, and Sheikh Abdullah, of course,
Mm-hmm.
was in jail at that time. And Mr. Ghulam Sadiq, he came to power soon, and he, from what
Mm-hmm.
we found out, was part of a group of people who were agitating
Mm-hmm.
for more rights for Kashmiris even before independence,
Okay.
but doing it from Lahore, which was a great educational
Mm-hmm.
and cultural center, including for Kashmir.
Mm-hmm.
Lahore was actually closer than Delhi for Kashmiris.
Mm-hmm.
And even
Mm-hmm.
Sheikh Abdullah used to go there. And
Yeah.
many of our film stars like Balraj Sahni, Devanand Sahab, they were from there.
Mm-hmm.
Bhagat
The,
Singh, of course, studied.
true.
So, because of that entire group, there
Mm-hmm.
was also a kind of leftist group there, in which even Mr. Faz Ahmad Faz was a part of it. And so they were
Okay.
part of this larger intellectual group, which may have
Mm-hmm.
helped her in getting finally, getting to stay in Kashmir. And then she stayed for
Okay.
10 years there, trying to build a new life.
Okay. Okay.
It
But
was not
what do you
easy
think
for
can be the,
sorry it was not
pardon
easy
me?
it was not easy for Muslims from Pakistan to resettle in Kashmir at the time. So there was a lot of
Yeah.
discussion whether we should trust these
Yeah.
people. And there was also rumors in Kashmir about, like, how come you are here, do you have a passport? What
Okay.
Yeah, so that was also there. The way they were, I mean, with their own neighbors, they seem to have really good relations. But in the wider
Mm-hmm.
community and in the schools where the children went, there were
Mm-hmm.
speculations and rumors that made them uncomfortable also. And they were also being watched as people who resettled from Pakistan.
Okay. So what do you think is the reason behind like total neglect that she suffered? Like you said, she was a part of freedom struggle also, and she was an
No, no.
important personality there. What could be the reason that she was totally neglected?
Freedom struggle. I would not say that she was. I think the husband had links with Muslim League. We do not know
Mhm.
how much she was involved, and whether it was
Mhm.
only for the creation of Pakistan. But yes, they were around, they were in a
Mhm.
good position. I will take a shot at it if you don't mind. Why
Mhm.
she kind of was neglected? So I think she fell
Mhm.
because of identity reasons into a kind of no man's land. Because she goes from
Okay.
India to Pakistan. There she falls foul of the authorities. Then she comes back to India again. There she is in Kashmir, which is a disputed area. Uh,
Mhm.
so because of all these things, she could not find her niche. So that is what I think, that she kind of fell through the cracks a little bit of
Mhm.
governance and bureaucracy.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
also, in the 1970s, when she really started to actively, say, I am actually also descendant from House of Awadh, and I want these
Mhm.
palaces back, which, anyway, we can say a lot about her identity and what happened, but about this particular demand of the palaces, we
Mhm.
don't have a strong opinion that she should have been given that or anything.
No.
But
Mhm.
it was not. Uh, from what we understand, like there were a lot of politics involved with how she was received everywhere as well.
Hmm.
Because she said,
Yeah.
I descend from Hazrat Mahal within Lucknow, there's
Mhm.
automatically a lot of sympathy because they feel Hazrat Mahal was our freedom
Mhm.
fighter.
Mhm.
And the
Yes.
But
Shia-Sunni dispute also that you found out.
yeah, then there was also Shia Sunni dispute, which was very, hard going in politics in Lucknow. But then also, on a national level, the Privy Purse had been abandoned just a few years before. So for
Mhm.
royalty in
That
general, there
also.
was not that much sympathy. And then there was
Mhm.
also emergency, at some point. So
Mhm.
there were also, the politics in Lucknow that was sympathetic to her at some point just was completely snowed under by emergency.
And she was
Mm.
Shia as
Mhm.
well as Sunni. So, her
Mm.
identity was not in a one particular category that may have gone
Mhm.
against. So she could not
Yeah.
get the support of either, like, fully, I guess.
Either of the groups, yeah.
Mm.
So why do you
Indian as
think that
well as
she came to
Pakistani.
Delhi? Why do you think that she lived in Kashmir for 10 years, but she came to Delhi? She didn't go to Lucknow.
She did go to Lucknow. Like first, she went to Delhi. That's true.
Mm,
Uh,
mm,
I think she came to
for the
Delhi because Mr. Sadiq died around,
okay,
yeah, I think around the war that took place with
okay.
Bangladesh. And in 75, Mr.
71?
I think around 71 or something,
yeah,
he dies.
71.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm,
And because that they, I think, lost their main patron. At the same
mm,
time, I think
okay.
because of the war itself, this movement that was going on by parties like Praja Parishad, which is a very old party which had conservative
Mm,
links and which was active in the valley, which was already agitating against resettling Pakistani Muslims. They must have
okay.
gotten a bit of fillip. They must have
Mm,
become more
mm,
emboldened. And I think the
mm,
government also ultimately kind of must have become a bit more suspicious, less lenient. A wartime, nobody who can be a
mm,
fifth columnist can be allowed, that kind of thing.
mm,
She herself
mm,
said that she was, as she said, she was under watch by the intelligence, which we know for
mm,
sure that they were. And I think it all may have played a role. And her
mm,
house was partially burnt. We don't know it was burnt
mm,
down. She claimed by others, her detractors. And there was also this case of the royalty, the privy purse being stopped by Mrs. Indira Gandhi, which may
mm,
have played a role as well.
Mm. But coming
mm,
also coming to Delhi rather than Lucknow to start with, I think also because she was basically petitioning the central government for her light
mm,
to get that attention. And then she
mm,
was invited to come to Lucknow by local politicians who heard,
mm,
okay, there's a lady in Delhi and we should help her
mm,
from Lucknow, we
mm,
should help her. And she came
mm,
and she lived there for some years and she had some, local people who were very sympathetic, but also
mm,
again some people who were not, especially from the other people who
Elite classes, the
who were
Nawabs.
claiming the descent from Awadh, who call themselves
okay.
the Nawabs, who were already more established in those circles.
Mm, mm,
And she is, of course, she's not the only one, who in the course of
yeah.
decades who came from outside to Lucknow saying, "Hey, I'm also part of this
Mm,
this royal descendants." And
mm,
generally, the established Nawabs don't take
mm.
very kindly to
So,
them.
so the huge family also came into picture.
Sorry, which family? The
The huge, she was part of a huge family, the House of Awadh, the
oh yeah,
Nawab's family.
Came
So
into
the
picture.
other, his other kids, other wives also must have played a picture
Yes.
in not
yeah. I
allowing
mean,
her to
The
claim
other
yeah,
her.
descendants,
other
there is a
descendants.
rivalry between them, and
Yeah.
everybody's
Hmm,
claims are contested, and
hmm,
this is kind of a running motive in the House of Awadh. We saw that
hmm,
paternity questions are
hmm,
always very vexed because many
hmm,
a times there were multiple wives. Then they have like
hmm,
links from all over the place. Somebody is from
hmm,
Patna, for example, we know when we met, and he is
Mm,
connected to the House of Awadh. So at the moment in Lucknow, there is hardly anybody who comes up and says we are actually from the House of Awadh,
mm,
as such descended from
okay.
one of the kings. All the other
Hmm,
claimants have tenuous links. So the whole thing is
okay.
very murky.
yeah, but of course in
Hmm,
Kolkata there is the family that
Yeah.
is the I mean official well-known descendants of Hazrat
okay.
Mahal and
Okay.
King Rajat Ali Shah, who of course went to Kolkata in exile.
Okay.
And they also immediately when she came in 1975 they started writing
Hmm,
letters to newspapers and also the government saying that this
hmm,
claim is false because she claims she's the descendant of specifically Hazrat Mahal. We have the family
hmm,
tree, and she is not there. She's not part of our family. But that
hmm,
never got much attention. We feel, in all the newspaper reports that came from 75 onwards, the railway station years, the Malcha Mahal years. Um,
hmm,
People were interested to tell the story. Okay, she is the descendant, without giving much
hmm.
attention to this protest that was launched by this part of the
So,
family.
yeah, so Delhi press accepted her as a part of the family.
Initially,
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm,
Initially, they
okay.
accepted, but over the years, I think that
Hmm,
protest must have played a part from Calcutta,
Mm,
and they started
hmm,
to kind of go down in the esteem of the Delhi media as well as international media, I think. And
mm,
from
hmm,
90s
hmm,
onwards, especially after Vilayat Mahal died in 92,
hmm,
I think their situation became more and more, they were more isolated, and they didn't have
hmm,
as many takers, I think, as they had in the beginning.
yeah, yeah. It was
hmm,
always
hmm.
it was put
The-
more into question their
Okay.
claims.
Hmm.
Hmm. The Western media is like portrayed them as like pagal kind of people, mavericks. So why do you think that they did that? And you met, I suppose you met the prince sometime when you were
Actually,
in you were
we
writing
actually
college.
never met in person. We spoke on the phone,
Okay.
and but
Okay.
I think a part of the media, like I mean, Western media always, like not always, but there is a tendency to kind of make things exotic, like to have an interest in the exotic, and
Okay.
you find that less and less. But if there's some old royal family living in a monument in a forest, it's of course like super intriguing to say, okay, wow, and that's only in India. Only in India you can find this kind of story. So I think
Hmm.
that is part of the interest of of
That was
some
some
of the Western.
deliberate attempt.
Mm.
Was that some? Do you think that that was some deliberate attempt to like malign their
Not deliberate, I would say.
image?
It was.
To malign their
Hmm.
claims. No, I mean initially also a lot of the Western press wrote about them quite sympathetically, and
Hmm.
more, giving some credibility or some serious interest into their claim that the kingdom of Awadh was unfairly annexed by the
Okay.
British, and
Hmm.
and that it was kind of a tragic history that they are the victim of. I think that it was in many articles it was portrayed like that, and then
Hmm.
when you have a character like Vilayat who's also presenting it very well, and then that makes it even more interesting. But they were
Hmm.
actually taking the story behind her performance quite seriously, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but from the
Yeah.
90s, I would say the doubts were starting to be cast, and we found one letter in the
But
archive. I think it stated
mhm.
even national
What
media,
was
Times of India did a
mhm.
story saying like, they
Mhm.
purported to have found their birth certificates. We haven't seen that story actually, and
Mm.
it was contested by these
Okay.
people also that it's not correct. And I think they wrote a letter to another TV channel, I think BBC or something, that we found through
Mhm.
their archives material, we found that okay, they had contested that as well. Why this interest
Mhm.
started to go down? Well, that's a sociological question. We are not sociologists
Mhm.
as such, so I'm not sure if this is within the scope of the book to. We
Mm.
have tried to answer. Depends. One only thing we could say that it was a different India back then, and then it
Mhm.
started to change with liberalization and many other things took the interest of Indian media later on, and the Western press started to see India differently, maybe as a market and things. So those kind of
Okay.
stories were probably sidelined.
Okay. Okay. Do you think that all this started after Begum Vilayat Mahal passed away?
The change of reporting on
The
them.
change,
Yeah,
yeah.
something is
They,
Maybe
yeah.
it
the
could
change
be,
in
yeah.
their image.
Mm.
Yeah, because she was
What
quite a
would,
powerful personality and she put forth their case
mm,
very strongly. But after she died,
uh,
the children were not, I
the
think, equal to
not.
that.
Mm.
They could not pull it off like her.
Yeah, and they will
Mm,
also. I mean, especially after she died, it was for them. It was a huge personal loss, of course. So
mm,
they
mm,
were really affected hugely by her death and became completely kind of self-inflicted isolation
Yeah.
for quite a
mm,
few years. So we
mm,
met someone who met Ali Raza about 5 6 years after Vilayat died, and before that he met almost nobody. And
okay.
so for them it was such a personal loss that of course it also affected the way
Yeah.
they communicated or did not communicate rather with media for a long time.
Mm,
And then after
mm,
that the
mm.
shift had been made.
Okay. And there have been, did you find any kind of black magic or those kind of tricks being done in Malcha Mahal?
No, we didn't
Mm,
find any of that. We saw a lot of videos speculating to that effect, but some
mm,
of the speculations were also based on things they found in the Mahal, which we know for a fact had nothing to do with any kind of ritual or black magic, and also from all the persons who knew them very closely, like the worker who lived with them for many years, as well as others who
mm,
used to work with them in Lucknow. There is no such
mm.
indication. It's just rumors, that started by people who thought they were just too mysterious, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And have you visited Malcha Mahal?
Yes.
Yeah, many
Many a
times.
times, many a
Hmm.
So
times.
how's the situation now?
Well, I mean, it's
This is-
pretty run down still. So in fact, we visited there just a few weeks ago, and now it's
Mhm,
under. I think because the Delhi government started to do tours there, but even they have stopped those tours because there are some cracks in the building, which makes it not, very responsible to bring big groups in there. So it's not closed. You can still visit, but they don't want to take the responsibility of taking large groups. And I know there have been some attempts to kind of not renovate it, but do it up a bit by various by the Delhi Archaeological Department, I think. But then
mhm,
because they were also starting to cut trees, there was a backlash from environmentalists because the forest is also
mhm,
ecologically important. But yeah, when Ali Raza had just died in 2017, there were still many things to be found. There were the documents, but there were also clothes. There were like empty paint tubes because he was an artist. He loved
Papers.
painting.
A lot of papers.
Newspapers. There was a fridge. There was a table, and all of that has slowly, over the course of years, it has disappeared. So furniture has been used for firewood and such, and it's completely empty now, I
Yeah.
would say.
There were
it's
carpets as well.
okay.
Yeah, so now it's
Mm.
completely empty,
So
and but
all
it's beautiful
stolen,
to
all
visit. It's beautiful. Yeah.
okay, all stolen now.
Yeah, I mean, stolen, used, I don't know. Yeah, disintegrated. I don't
But
know.
the
Maybe
tours
there's
that
been a round
Delhi
of tidying up also of garbage. Yeah.
and the tours that you were talking about, the Delhi government is doing that. Those are tours are also related. Matlab they're presenting the place as a haunted place or something.
Yeah, we think that's not fair actually,
Mm.
because
Mhm.
that's the attempt we have made with this book to humanize them. It's easy to see them as ghostly figures because they lived in isolation
Mhm.
in a so-called mysterious place, and it was dilapidated. The story is intriguing, very strange, but it is still, true. It's not a fiction.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
existed, and like all human beings, they had their hopes and sorrows and disappointments and occasional joys as well. So I think
Mhm.
they should not be turned into ghostly figures. That's
Mhm.
very unfair. Anything
Mhm.
else you may contest whether they are royals or not, but they should have the
Mhm.
dignity of being treated as human beings who may have
Mhm.
made mistake or wrong choices. That's
Mm.
something we believe in.
Yeah. So we saw there was a great
So,
interest in the haunted tours.
mhm.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
we think it's the place and the family is more interesting from a history point of view. Their story is not just of a single family; they were very much, part of recent history, and the story.
Mhm.
We wanted to tell the story in that context.
Mhm. So, your book is it specifically targeted to a particular readership age group, or to the government, to somebody? Are you targeting the book? Are you looking for some readers in a particular category?
No, I think the
What
book
book
is for
is-
everyone who likes history and is just interested in a good narrative, an interesting story about human beings, about human
Mhm.
relationships, because there were strong relationships between the mother and the daughter, between the son,
Mhm.
and also in the story of India itself, of the House of Awadh, of Kashmir, of
Mhm.
Pakistan, and India.
Mm.
What would you say?
Yeah, yeah, and the interplay of really like what is kind of world history and a personal family story, and that's why I think in India, a lot of people who knew about this family and who might have seen a news article here and there and thought like, oh, so interesting, and then didn't talk about it. I
Mhm.
mean, it's for them, of course, it's very interesting, but even for people who never heard of them, they can enjoy this book. And in fact, it's going to be on sale in a few bookstores in Netherlands as well. And
Okay.
uh, and I think even people here, I've already given it to some people here. They also enjoy it.
I would just add a little bit. May I?
Mhm.
Is that there
Mhm.
is an underlying request in the book. If the
Mhm.
government sees it, it has some papers. We believe it could
Mhm.
declassify them. A lot of time has passed, and then we will
Mhm.
have even a more clear picture.
Yeah.
Mm. And now, like you did so much of research while doing this book, wouldn't you want to uh, convey it to the government, Indian government, that maybe the Malcha Mahal could be developed into a museum or something,
Absolutely.
Mm. No, I
Absolutely.
just in
mean,
the memory of.
Absolutely.
yeah, it would
Thank you.
be,
Yes.
yeah, no, definitely. I think the monument has great value
Mhm.
of all the history that is there, including that of this family,
Family. Yeah.
for sure. But it has to be
Mhm.
done in a proper planning with
Yeah.
involvement of environmentalists as well,
Also.
because it's part of the
Mhm.
ecosystem of the rich forest, and
Yeah.
it should not
Mhm.
be, it should not work
Nee,
against each other.
would you be approaching government for that? My question is that
Oh,
since
No,
you have
maybe
done so much and no.
no, through journalists like you. If the government, we are also journalists, but in this case, we have written the book
Mhm.
and we have kind of
Mhm.
done our work. But we do hope
Mhm.
that it reaches the government. If it can be turned into a
Mhm.
museum, the Al-Qazi Foundation has an archive of theirs. There are independent
Mhm.
photographers who have lovely photos. They could be put up. You could have a
Mhm.
performance by the
Mhm.
artist. The roof actually used to
Yeah,
be put. It used to have dance recitals in the past. It was
recycles.
the
Yeah,
Lalit
I
Kala
read that.
Academy.
Yeah, it used to be an
Mhm.
art
Mhm.
residency. No, definitely, but I think there's already, since Delhi government archaeological
Mhm.
department did take some initiative towards at least
Mhm.
making the monument suitable for tourist visits. there's already, it's already, how do you say it? What did it say on the note? It's under, there's a some court decisions are pending because of the,
Subsidize.
Matter is under under
Mhm.
judicial
So some initiatives
consideration.
have been taken,
Mhm.
and like I said, the involvement of environmentalists and experts, environment conservation should also be part of it, because it should not be
Yeah.
damaging
Destroy
for
the.
the forest in any way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, after writing this extensive book over a period of couple of more than a couple of years, how do you look back at it? Do you feel that it was a very satisfying project, or do you think that maybe something more could have been included?
There's always more, with this kind of research, like you came thinking like, okay, there's always more to be done. And like I met this very interesting person, like only after the book went to print, who again knew Ali Raza in the 90s, and who gave again a very different perspective of his personality and the way this final years must have been. So that can be included. There's archive material that we could not find that might be included, so there might be a second print. We might be able to include more, but also I regret that we didn't start sooner, because people have died. Even in the course of writing this book, even a few people who we spoke to have passed away before it went to print.
Okay.
And we found so many people in Kashmir who were their neighbors in the 1960s. Only 10 years before, they were living in Karachi, and we were not able to find people who knew them at the time. If we had started the research a bit earlier, we would have understood even more about this family. I feel,
But as we say in our Hindu dharma, there's always a time for everything. You cannot go beyond that.
Yes.
There is a time fixed for this thing. This couldn't have happened earlier. It was just trying to be now.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so, see, both of you wrote, it's a bit personal question. Both of you wrote this book together. So, were there any disagreements?
No,
Back
it
and
happened
forth?
right in the beginning. But first, once we decided what is the course of action, there were no disagreements.
Okay. So it was a smooth sailing.
Yeah, minor disagreements here and there, but I don't remember ever discussing the narrative, how it should go, and if you remember differently.
No. I think
It's not.
no, it went well.
Okay.
It went well. We were, because it was so much research, it was good. There were two of us. We divided some work also. And each has their strengths, and we it was a true cooperation.
Yeah.
So you said that a reprint might come with some additions.
Oh, I mean, that's only hoping, right? First, enough people have to buy it for us to get a second print. If at some point there will be a second print, we might add some things to it.
We would like to add a few things, hoping again that the government also heeds and releases some
takes
papers.
note of it. Yeah, true. And what are you currently busy with? Any new book in the offing? Any new book in the offing? Discussing about one particular topic or something. What are you busy with right now? This book is over now. It's out.
Yes. Aletta?
Well, I mean, nothing is set in stone yet, but Abhi has been working a lot on the what do we say?
Something
like the revolutionary movement of the early 20th century and the connections in Europe.
Connections in Europe. I'm trying to get Aletta to collaborate with me, but she's very busy and she's doing her work.
Okay.
But now we're in the Netherlands. There are a lot of connections between that period of revolutionary movement in India and connections with Germany and even Netherlands. So it's very interesting to look into that history.
Okay. Only history. You don't think about anything else. It's just presenting history in the form of stories.
She is a history graduate, and maybe I caught the bug with her. I plan to write a novel sometimes, but I have not really kind of been able to so far.
Okay. Okay. So, as we come to an end of this session, I want to ask you, you are fairly experienced in the profession, that's why I'm asking you.
Mhm.
What would you suggest a new writer, an upcoming writer? What is that one piece of advice that you would want to give a new writer?
Hmm. Well, I mean, there's many things I could say, and of
Mm,
course, we also have a lot to learn from others. But I think what we have really learned from this book is to keep an open mind. Like we did not know how our research was going to end before, when we started out. And on the one hand, I like to be structured. I like to, have a set plan of like all the chapters you're going to write, and then just follow that plan. But it's very important to keep an open mind and to be able to structure is good, but you have to be flexible to change your own plan as well.
okay. And when
And
you are writing history, how important are facts?
mm,
Because often history is like mysterious also.
mm,
Things are omitted and just to portray a particular person in a particular manner. So how
yeah.
much importance do facts play in a such a kind of book which is historical, which talks about history?
mm. No, I mean facts. They're very. I mean facts are there. Facts are facts, but there's so many ways of interpreting facts
Yeah,
that whatever what ends up being your narrative, what ends up being your story, is guided by facts,
Mhm.
but also by
context.
contexts and context, memories,
Mhm.
different people's interpretation of those facts.
I would like to give an example from the book actually, which is very
Mhm.
specific and it was very interesting for us because it was initially
Mhm.
presented that Vilayat Mahal had slapped a Pakistani prime minister. Now,
Okay.
yeah, it is in the book. She did, in fact,
Mhm.
she
Mhm.
heckled. We don't know if she really slapped,
Yeah,
but she heck,
newspaper reports say
but
heckled.
she heckled.
Mm,
That much is certain.
Mhm.
She confronted him during a public rally, Muhammad Ali Bogra.
Okay.
Now, it was
Mhm.
presented before to in the press that she must have been mad to have done this. So the fact
Mhm.
is there, and there was this interpretation that anybody who does this must be mad. But when
Mhm.
actually we went into it, it seemed that it was a kind of an act of political protest because she was involved in the
Okay.
Kashmir movement, and she thought that
Mhm.
Mr. Bogra had not done much, and there is something else that is there in the book that could have played a role.
mm,
Okay.
She may have had personal some kind of issue with Mr. Bogra as well.
mm,
So then
Mhm.
we saw that what is being presented ऊपर से is
Mhm.
could be more complex basically.
mm.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's a fact that afterwards she was actually sent to a mental institution. And in the words of the newspapers of the time, the headline was that the court declared her a lunatic. So the fact is that the court declared her a lunatic, but our interpretation is that she wasn't, in
Even
Mhm.
other
reality.
media said that
Yeah.
it's probably not because of being a lunatic, but because protesting against
Mhm.
Bogra's Kashmir policy. Other media
Mm,
also said, which we also
Mhm.
protest.
yeah.
It's just that when you
Mhm.
construct a narrative, if you look at something, then generally people present those parts of
Yeah.
the evidence which
Mhm.
suit it. But we also
Mhm.
presented the other evidence that anything we found, we
Mhm.
were more transparent that way. And it also seemed that you
Mhm.
can very well interpret the same set of facts
Mhm.
differently.
Mm, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. And how much of omission of facts is plays a part?
Omission
A
of fact.
certain fact certain fact maybe may not be very important. Do
Hmm.
you omit when writing a history book? Do you omit that or still present it?
We presented it as much as possible. We
Yeah.
presented it thinking the reader
Mhm.
is capable enough to judge for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we presented a very wide context. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the facts that we
Yeah.
knew about their life, but we go into the history like very extensively. So the whole context of the kind of the place that they were living in and the time that they were living
Mhm.
in. So that
Mhm.
is a very wide selection of kind of facts or like context to the story that is there.
Mhm.
And then, regarding their own life, um, I mean, yeah, whatever we could find about facts, we presented it, because that was, that was what we wanted to find out. So, whatever we could find out, we presented, because everything was interesting. Yeah, I think so. But there's always a selection, of course. You always select, like, when we do an interview, you select the quotes that you're going to use. So the ones that are, contribute most to new knowledge, and the narration can be used, and others are not. So yeah, there's always a selection of what's most relevant in the end.
Yeah, but I mean, in this case, we did not omit anything because it did not go, because it did not suit what we were thinking. Even if we were thinking something else, if we got a fact which did not suit it, we tried to understand it and presented it in its context.
Yeah.
We did not try to create a narrative just because we would like to see her in a certain way. It's up to the reader.
Yeah, and for that reason, sometimes we also are not conclusive in what, like, for example, what is everyone's age and real name? Like, we have,
it remains doubtful.
We present a few different sources.
We got birth certificates and all, but not all of them were available or were not being shown. We did our best.
Yeah. So we say what is most plausible, like with all these different ones. We say what is most plausible for what reason.
In those days, birth certificates were usually not so common, or people use their dates.
So that means Vilayat Mahal and her children, you have presented as normal human beings who are subject to all the fallings of a human being.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we saw it. No different from anybody else. No better, no worse. Just the choices that she made didn't pay off that well.
So thank you so much, Aletta and Abhimanyu.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Same
and
here.
I wish you all the best for your forthcoming books. Maybe the 1920s book that you're talking about, we should see soon.
Hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.